Well, the new tariffs put 10% duties on goods imported to the US from Australia. The country's Prime Minister, who's in the middle of an election campaign, called them unjustified, but stated Australia would not be responding in kind.
The administration's tariffs have no basis in logic, and they go against the basis of our two nations partnership. This is not the act of a friend. Today's decision will add to uncertainty in the global economy, and it will push up costs for American households. It is the American people who will pay the biggest price for these unjustified tariffs. This is why our government will not be seeking to impose reciprocal tariffs. We will not join a race to the bottom that leads to higher prices and slower growth.
Well, Ebony Bennett is the Deputy Director of the Australia Institute. That's a public policy think tank, and she joins us from Australia's capital, Canberra. Many thanks for being with us. So first of all, just could you outline for us which Australian industries are going to be particularly hit by this 10% tax?
Well, Australia has managed to escape some of the steepest tariffs that the Trump administration has imposed. And I guess amongst the industries expected to be hardest hit is the beef industry. We export quite a lot of beef to America. There was some thoughts that there might be some type of ban initiated here. That hasn't come to pass. But Australia has really diversified its economy away from the United States in recent years. I think under 5% of our exports go to the United States. So we seem to have avoided the worst of the tariffs, but it is expected that beef will be amongst the industries hardest hit.
Yeah, because Trump did single out US beef to Australia, didn't he? Saying that Australia chooses not to import it. Why is that?
Well, that's really due to biosecurity concerns. So Australia as an island has obviously a big advantage when it comes to biosecurity. America has seen in previous years mad cow disease outbreaks that Australia was trying to avoid importing here. That's the basis of some of the restrictions on imports of US beef that Trump has singled out here. But really not much to do with trade, much more to do with biosecurity, which the Australian Prime Minister and authorities have been at pains to point out. But obviously, President Trump was determined to implement these global tariffs, and Australia hasn't managed to escape.
Another island that's been singled out is Norfolk Island, isn't it? I mean, this is a tiny island just off Australia with only just a little more than 2,000 inhabitants. That seems to have been hit with a 29% tariff. Do we know why?
We don't know why. I think our Prime Minister found it quite inexplicable, and perhaps is the reason why he called these tariffs illogical. Also hit two completely uninhabited islands, as well as Norfolk Island. No real reason there. Obviously, uninhabited islands aren't exporting anything to anywhere. So those remain a bit of a mystery to everyone, and I think show how nonsensical these tariffs really are.
Now, there in Australia, it's election season, of course. They're just around the corner. How large is Trump looming over the campaigns?
Look, I think he gets a mention almost every day. The tariffs here have also been big news. The Prime Minister has been clear that Australia doesn't intend to respond with reciprocal tariffs, instead pursuing perhaps a case before the World Trade Organization, also announcing things like loans to expand our exports into new markets and assistance for industries there. Other elements that fall way short of responding with reciprocal tariffs. The opposition leader, also in election mode here, has more or less intimated that he could pick up the phone and could have secured a better deal than the Australian Prime Minister. I'm not sure anyone really believes that is possible. And as for Australians, I think Donald Trump does loom large in this election. The Australia Institute recently surveyed Australians about what they thought about Donald Trump, and almost a third of Australians said that they saw him as the biggest threat to world peace. More people selected Donald Trump than even above dictators like Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping, for example. So he's not very popular here in Australia, but how this plays out in the Australian federal election campaign remains to be seen. But certainly I don't think either or any of the political leaders here will be rushing to associate themselves with Donald Trump.
Yeah, we'll be following those elections closely as well. Ebony Bennett, for the moment, many thanks indeed for joining us.
Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.